What? 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 What?
Silence!
What? 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 What?
Silence!
You caught me dancing a little bit there. Yeah, 2020 by far has been, I think, the craziest year I can recall ever in my 45 years of living on this rock that we call the Earth. You know, we've got a global pandemic that's basically shut down the world. Wearing masks has become like a normal thing, and also a political argument. Tiger King became a global phenomenon, and evidently we've got murder bees coming after us. In the middle of all this, we all witnessed the horrifying, gut-wrenching death, no murder of George Floyd, and the re-spark of the Black Lives Matter movement. And people around the United States and hopefully around the globe are waking up to the fact that in the year 2020, we still have a hardcore racism problem happening in our society. And I, for one, am personally sick of it. I'm tired of having this conversation. Hopefully we're moving further and further forward to get away from that sort of stuff. So today's show, as you can tell just from my opening, is going to be a little bit different than what we probably typically do on the Social Media Lab. We're going to talk about some data, but we're going to focus on talking about the marketing power of minorities. And I've got a great guest who is going to absolutely blow your mind and hopefully open up your eyes quite a bit. So stick around. It's the Social Media Lab Live.
Are you ready to use science to bust some myths in the social media ecosystem? Welcome to the Social Media Lab Live, brought to you by Agorapulse, where our social media scientists experiment on real accounts to crack the code on social media success for your business.
What?
Now your hosts, Scott Ayers.
All right, I am Scott Ayers, the host here of the Social Media Lab Live show at Agorapulse. If you haven't checked out any of our experiments or you're behind on them, we've been publishing a lot more lately. So make sure you run over to agorapulselab.com. You can check out all the things that we've got going. We actually published a new podcast this morning based on a blog post I did like a week or so ago where we talked about reviving dead Instagram accounts. A real fun experiment that I did on there. So make sure you go check out that. And we are part of Agorapulse. I know we always say powered by Agorapulse. I work for Agorapulse, but it's just our little tagline because of the different branding that we do have with the orange hair and all. If you haven't checked out Agorapulse, we help you manage all of your social media, especially if you've got teams. You can manage your content, you can manage them, you can manage the power reports, which is a new thing in there. Go to agorapulse.com /live. And you can take a look at that. So I'm going to hop over in the comments and see what everyone's saying. Let me know in the comments where you are watching today's show from, whether your city, your town, maybe you're on the beach, maybe you're just in your living room. I don't know. Let me know where you're at. Love to find out. We are streaming through Restream this week. This is my third week of testing Restream as part of a really big experiment that I'm doing, testing third-party tools versus Facebook native. I've done one Facebook native. I've got a couple more that I've got to do here down the road. So I'm testing Restream, which makes it a little bit hard. I love Restream's back end. Like their user interface, I think is maybe the best one I've used so far, but I can't schedule the live show. So that's why I've had to do these events and then boom, go live a little bit early with a countdown. And someone asked a minute ago how I did I think it was Cheyenne asked, how did you do the countdown timer? It's actually a video and that I just played as soon as I went live inside Restream. And you can do that through Be Live. You can do that through StreamYard. It's just a video that I played. Restream actually gives you one countdown timer you can actually use inside their system, which is kind of cool. But yeah, so Restream makes it a little bit harder. The interesting thing too, and if you see me look over another screen, I'm looking at my other monitor, where when we go live immediately through Restream, unlike when I went through scheduled lives through StreamYard or Be Live, it's sticking it in Facebook Watch, and we're getting like these massive amount of views. So like right now, we're showing 242 of you watching. So a lot of people who didn't even know who Agorapulse is probably watching and wonder who the heck is this dude in the orange hair, and why is he showing up on my feed? But hey, I'm Scott, by the way. So yeah, so it's kind of been interesting way Facebook Watch does it, and at the same time. And I'm just warning you ahead of time, the last couple of weeks when we've done this through Restream and through Facebook Watch, we're getting a lot of spam comments, and some of them are a little inappropriate. So I apologize ahead of time if you see those. Deb Mitchell, who's our community manager, is in the comments, and she's pretty good about getting those out and ban them as fast as you can. But they may show up on there. Nothing we can do about it. This maybe is one of those downsides of going live immediately on a page like this instead of scheduling it. But it is kind of cool because the reach of these has been phenomenal. And I'm excited for this week's show to get some reach. I think it's a pretty important topic. So let's just see real quick. Rigor says, hey now. And Rigor won a book last week. On our show from Desiree. I got to send his book out to him. Deb Mitchell says, hi, everyone. Brad Friedman, love seeing you on the show. Brad's been a guest on the show and is a really good friend. And yeah, I talked about dancing. Let's see. Troy, he's watching from the fourth wall on the show. That's a pretty good one, Troy. What does Naomi say? You mean the orange hair isn't part of the standard uniform? No, like I've joked, like we need to buy everybody on our team, like at least these little orange headbands. I actually carry around 4 or 5 of those in my backpack when I go to events, which has been since March. But and people can put those on and take a picture with me with the orange hair. Let's see, Dewey's watching from Wales and he's coming through us from Periscope. Appreciate you watching on Periscope. We are streaming on Periscope. Which still does exist, by the way, for those of you who don't know. We're streaming on YouTube, we're streaming on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And I actually am streaming this on Twitch, on a brand new Twitch account that I started, which has 0 followers, but I'm kind of curious if anybody hops over and watches it. Rigor's in the Jersey Shore. Naomi says she's in the middle of the mountains of New Mexico. I love New Mexico. That's been like our vacation place to go play, like White Sands. That I love that White Sands Park there. It's like one of my favorite places. Sarah is watching from the waves in Maine. I got to go to Maine last year to Agents of Change, and it was like one of the most amazing places that I've been to. Troy says I danced the entire time in the waiting room. Yeah, he did. I saw his moves, and they weren't great, but they were okay. They were decent, you know. Gary Anderson. Oh my gosh, Gary! And I graduated high school with Gary Anderson, and I don't think I've seen you in person, Gary, since 1993 when we graduated. Funny quick story. And Gary's probably wondering what in the world is this going on. But Gary and I, we joked, we were alphabetical. He's Anderson, I'm Ayers. And so we were like the valedictorian. He was the valedictorian. I was the salutatorian of the other graduates on our graduation program. And that's kind of been like a running joke that we had for the longest time. Fabian's in Utah, he says, and Naomi says White Sands is gorgeous. Yeah, I completely agree. And again, the inappropriate comments may come across, and I do apologize as they do come across because we are getting hit with some spam on there. So like I mentioned in the opening, if you were watching, if you're just hopping on, today's show is a little bit different. We are going to talk about some data, obviously, but we're not talking about an experiment. We're not necessarily going to talk about how to do a live video show or how to do things on YouTube or stuff like that. We're going to talk about the marketing power of minorities. And I think this is a really interesting subject for us to hop into here on the lab and completely different from what I normally do. But I'm going to go ahead and bring on our guest. He was an electrical engineer. I didn't know this. He's an electrical engineer turned digital marketer. His name is Troy Sandage. He creates successful social media and digital marketing strategies for small businesses, helps them increase their brand awareness, raise engagement, and it's just pretty freaking amazing. You can find him everywhere. He's Find Troy everywhere on social media. So Troy, thanks for hopping on this goofy show with me today.
I'm ready for this journey. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. We should have sent you a wig.
I was.
Yes. Yeah, we messed up. Like that would be a fun thing for me to figure out. Like send all the guests a wig before we go live, and they've got to put a wig
they
on.
Unbox it and they try to figure out how to put it on.
Yeah, like I had to spray a bunch of hairspray on this one this morning because it's been a little rough. This one's traveled so much, it's gotten squished and rolled up. And Troy was asking for the show. He's like, "How many wigs do you have?" And I'm like, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I got 4.
Because in the back of my mind, I envision there's like a bat cave where you only go in and then you turn on the light. There's nothing but different hairs.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Board in different styles, ever so slightly different.
Yeah, or like the new Spider-Man, cartoon that came out. You know how there's all the different suits you can try. Right. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. So, Troy, before we hop in, we kind of gave you a quick little summary there. Tell us how did you get into to digital marketing and from an electrical engineer, and how did you become Find Troy? How did that become a thing?
Well, Find Troy was a pure accident. Apparently, at Troy was taken. Troy Sandage I own, but no one can spell my last name. I have people pronounce it wrong all the time. So I wanted something more simple, easy to do. Asked Troy, just I'm not a therapist too much, and just came across the find, and I stuck with it. Funny thing is, for the first years, I was going to change it, and we just kind of kept it moving. But I digress. So me coming in, want to be an electrical engineer. I had a lot of opportunities to lean into that career pretty heavily with some top Fortune 500 brands along the way. But I also had a very good skill of doing videos. I was doing that since I was 14, editing, producing, filming. Now, I wasn't the best, but at the time, everyone wants to make a movie trailer. Everyone wants to do all these crazy things. But I was fascinated with engineering from the data, from the analytical, ironically, but just trial and error and trying to make something work. And I love electrical engineering. I loved it. Mechanical, no hate, but electrical was my thing. But I was very creative, and I wanted to really lean in on the creative. And so I made the switch. I made the pivot. Halfway through, got my degree in digital media and communications with electrical engineering as well, and ran with it. Ironically enough, my first job out of college was working for a global contract manufacturer specialized in engineering, but yet I was coming in as the marketer. So it was a catch-22, a full 360 for me. But I think that foundation allowed me to have the data and the analytical skills, but also combine it with creative.
Right.
So I definitely know that I'm kind of a unicorn, having that left and right brain pretty good and pretty solid, that I can lean in on data when I need to, but also really push creative when I need to as well.
Yeah, because typically you're one or the other. Like I am not, even though I dress like, I'm not super creative or artistic or any of that sort of stuff. I got to get other people do that, but I think that's kind of cool. You got that sort of brain that can do both. Yeah, very cool. Now you work now. Do you run an agency now of your own, or you just do speaking? What's kind of your main gig right now?
I've been that person that's just been, you know what, I'm going to try it, and I'll try it. And it's kind of like you, but I'll do my experiments of like, is it profitable or is it fun? Do I enjoy it? Does it lean into my bigger brand? And so for me, I create social universe within myself. So I wouldn't say I'm an agency, but I definitely help a lot of clients, a lot of organizations, working with them, whether either full-time capacities or in short bursts, consulting, just helping them grow and maintain.
Is there a particular niche you kind of stick to, or?
No, I think that's what I love about me. Some people go really micro. Is more so, what can I do and what can my value bring to you? Right. So I don't really have a crazy mega niche. I've gone with national brands. I work with SMBs as well. So I'm fluctuating all the time, and I love that for sure.
Yeah, I think it makes it, you don't get burned out fast if you've got this different one. I think if some people who get stuck in one niche, the bad thing is they cookie cutter through every niche, every client. When you're doing multiple, you've got to really think outside the box quite a bit, and it's harder to get
on my toes, keep me sharp.
Right. Now let's pivot over into today's conversation, and you've kind of been a very loud but needed voice, I think, in social media in the last 2 months, since you were 7. But I mean, it seems like in the last few months, like you've really just popped up and become a big voice. And there's a couple of things that I want to talk about there. For one, you've been like the running guest on Agora Polls, which has been
Agora
fun.
Polls, I love y'all. I don't know. This has been a marathon. If y'all been tired of seeing me, I think I'm the inside scoop guest of the quarter. I don't know, but it's been a ride. I've been enjoying it.
Yeah, like you were on Social Pulse, weekly Friday, and you've been on Jennifer's Lunch and Learn, and you were on the big show she had with a bunch of guests. So, and that's really the first time I'd ever seen you, to be honest. I think I seen you in passing, a little bit here and there.
In passing, but never directly.
Yeah, never directly, unfortunately. So it's kind of been neat to kind of see and hear your voice, and I've been so impressed with how you hold yourself and just the things you're able to talk about and switch that brain multiple times to talk about different subjects. And of course, today's subject, Troy came. I asked Troy to kind of, hey, let's get on the show. Let's talk about data. We had a couple different ideas we tossed around, and I think this idea of talking about the marketing power of minorities and some data related to that is going to be fun. But I'm going to ask you a candid question here. Are you happy that you've kind of become the spokesperson, if you will, for people of color in our social space, or what's your feeling on that? I mean, just be honest. If you don't want to answer, I mean, it seems like I just wonder how that comes up, because I think for a guy like me, just being completely honest, I hate going, I got to ask this guy. I want to ask this guy to talk about this, but he's probably sick of it by now. And so where are you at on that? What's your personal opinion right now on that?
So I'll take the first 10 seconds just to really thank Agora Polls, because honestly, for the first 2 months, really this year, I've been really quiet. Actually scaled back. You never know, I'm really big on Twitter. Like I'm a mega power Twitter user. I've been scaling back and just needed time. I'm a marketer by trade, but I'm also African American. So there's a lot of, emotional things going through. But Agorapulse has really given me that voice and that opportunity to really elevate and then just support and lean into that as a way to help other marketers and other businesses that have the right intentions. Maybe they don't have all the data points together to figure that out, but maybe if we can have someone who also represents the community and can maybe also understands our business and can articulate and find those little loopholes and connector dots to make it work, maybe we can educate and elevate in that way. And I've been very thankful to the entire Agorapulse team for that. With that being said, I think, early on it was weird because in my field, I think we know there aren't a lot of people who look like me from where I'm from in this industry. It's been a pioneer since I got started. It's been a lot of hits. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of systematic things that I don't really talk about because it's just what I'm used to elevate, to endure, to keep going. And that's not everybody. Yeah. But the small little group that does impact profitability, opportunities, speaking, whatever you want to tie into. But when I think about, everyone's asking me now, this is a lot of more publicity than I'm used to in this micro realm. I'm a marketer, but now I'm also a Black marketer. Right. So is it because I'm Black plus a marketer, or because of the value and the articulation that I can do on the daily, that regardless if I was Black or not? But in this moment, in this time, I think it's imperative that more people who can identify on this from the social justice, from the systematic racism experience, and just what it feels like to do this, and in spite of that, still being overcome and educate and explain, needs to raise their voice. And so I was talking with a dear colleague of mine, and I said, I don't know. I don't want, it's like kind of like a trophy where you get, but you didn't really earn. I don't want publicity just because of right now we need to fill in slots. And, in the full premise, Agorapulse and anyone else I've been on have never done it in that way. I've connected to many of these individuals long before this is like taking shape to where it is. So just premise for that. The point I'm trying to make is, at the time, I didn't want to just feel like kind of the Black token professional. Like I'm going around saying a little spiel. Is it connecting? Is it making value? Right. I talked to a colleague and they're like, regardless of the why, if you have the opportunity to change people's lives, help businesses get through this period, not only from a profitability standpoint, but from a be on the right side of social justice and everything else, do it and make it work that way. Yeah. So I'm here trying to talk those data points, connect the dots. And I think it's an interesting catch-22 because from a marketing perspective, you still have to run a business. But from a social justice and as a human perspective, we still want to be able to show empathy and connect. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important, and that's what and thank you for answering that candidly. I didn't even ask Troy. I told Troy that's not one of the questions on our list, but it's just on top of my mind. I'm like, I wonder, as a white guy in his 40s in Texas, is it okay? Can I ask? I want you to talk about that. I wanted you on the show anyway, because I just started doing interviews and I changed the show like 2 months ago in the middle of all this. And so I'm like, okay, but now we're in the middle of this thing. What do we talk about? And so I appreciate you answering that. And I will say for me, and this is where I'm going to get a little candid myself for a second here. I mean, I grew up, I've been in Texas my entire life. And, middle of nowhere, Texas, little small little dot on the map that most people don't know. And I think that you mentioned it kind of talking about the systematic, even the oppression within the social media marketing space. There's just some things that happen and you go, well, just the way it happened. And that's BS. It shouldn't happen that way. But for me, I mean, I'm a guy who, never really felt like I was quote unquote racist, which is like the most whitest thing to say, I think. But I was allowing things to happen and not speaking up and not noticing it because of 40 something years of being taught the wrong way. And I think a lot more people need to wake up to that. Like do some investigating, do some deep diving into what you are, just being okay with. And go, no, that's not okay. And like I told my kids the other day, I've got a 14-year-old, 12-year-old, and a 9-year-old. I'm like, we were talking a little bit. We don't watch the news with them or anything because just too much in the news is so awful. But we got talking about some stuff about George Floyd and some things. I wanted them to kind of have a little bit of that conversation. And I'm like, I hope when you are my age, this conversation is gone and you don't have this conversation with your kids because it's awkward as a parent to kind of go, yeah, there's people who who hate people just because of the way they were born, and that's not okay. And so for me, I feel like I owe I look back on my 45 years and go, man, there's a lot of times I just said okay to that, or that's cool, or thumbs up, or whatever. I liked the post on social media and realized, man, I'm a part of the problem, and I don't want to be part of the problem anymore. And so hopefully there's more people like me. I know Rich Brooks with Agents of Change. He's kind of been talking out. We've had a lot of conversations as well that we just kind of we never spoke out against anything, but we never, I remember said anything out loud about, anything, but we kind of just allowed it. Went, that's just life. That's just a Southerner. That's just Southern pride, that kind of thing. And now I think we're all at least for me, I'm waking up to it quite a bit. They're going, it's wrong. And I need to go, no, I need to not be friends with. I told Troy before the show, I unfriended about 300 people recently because I'm like, I don't want that in my life. I don't want that in there. I don't support it. I don't, I can't take it anymore. And I think more people need to do that sort of thing. So just get that off my chest a little bit. We'll call this this is counseling hour with
a nice soliloquy. Yes.
Scott and Troy. So I think having hard conversations, someone mentioned here in the comments, hard conversations are so good. I've had many of them with many longtime friends. Stephen Easley is an old friend. Gary, who was on the show, he was in the comments earlier, will know Stephen, grew up with Stephen, and we've had these rough conversations, and unfortunately keep having to have these conversations every couple of years. And I'm, for one, I told him the other day, I'm like, I don't want to have this conversation anymore. We shouldn't, and hopefully we'll move past this. So on a business front, we want to talk about, what is the marketing power of minorities, and because there is a lot of power in this. And so Troy's looked at a couple of different data points we're going to kind of talk through. And the first one is, and we'll go to that one first. I clicked the wrong one first. Is that okay? I got out of order. You saw everybody back there was that Tuesday, and I forget what Tuesday it was in April.
Tuesday, yeah.
And so, everybody did the Blackout Tuesday, and they posted black squares on Instagram and Facebook. And I think businesses in general started to go, oh, do I do this? Do I not do this? Did that help? Is there any data that supports that it helped? What's your thought on that whole thing there?
Whew, man, that was a weird day. As a marketer, people ask me, Troy, should I do this? And as a marketer, taking my blackness aside for a minute, well, who's the demographic of your audience? Because if your audience is, to be candid, in disagreement of that movement, there are other ways to maybe show your support that doesn't impede on your business, impede on those who work under you, who are getting a check, who's just trying to survive during COVID-19. And that sounds like, well, Troy, why are you saying that? I'm looking at the bigger picture of, yes, if you can post a black square, it shouldn't mean that much, but it could turn your audience against you depending on your audience demographic. On the flip side, black person here, wow, that is very powerful for you as an organization to be willing and open to take that stand, to just show a sense of solidarity and support. This is not right. We should be better than this as a country and as human beings. And I love that. But I'm looking at both sides. It's sad, but the very truth is that we would like to think, and we'll probably talk about this later on in other questions as well, we'll dive into even more data on that most orgs who did the black square did it out of empathy, did it out of the right reasons, and they conveyed it with the right messaging and everything else to boot. However, we also do know that a lot of that was done for a strategic move as well. Why, Troy? Well, the numbers always dictate that most people, especially millennials and Gen Z, more than boomers right now, will choose not to work with the brand or organization or rep them whatsoever if they go against their own personal social values. Easy. So, and also, it's also trending. You're getting a lot more eyes on it. And let's say for some lack of better judgment that your audience itself didn't have a high pool of minority engagement or activity or followers, or they're in your buying pool, right? Doing that, signals, I support you. I want you to buy my products and services. Now, that I'm not being shallow, but I'm just showing the marketing strategic side of that could be the reasoning behind, I'm going to post that black square and I'm going to have a long post and I'm going to tag. Now, I'm not defaming all the organizations who did it for the right reasons, who donated, who support, not defaming that at all. But when we're looking at the data here, we cannot exclude that being a rationale decision. So me being both of these things, and I'm juggling it, and for those who are asking me, I'm going to say, you know what? The good outweighs the bad.
Right.
I'm not going to measure heavily on the intent because in the greater scheme of things, Juneteenth this year was the most Googled than has ever been in the entire existence of people recognizing what it was. More people have been more transparent about these conversations, have been more open. Now, it is a little overwhelming sometimes, and I don't mean it with no disregard or disrespect because I'm an open space for people who want to have those conversations and learn. But it is overwhelming that it's like, oh, you've been dealing with her life? Yeah, since I've been born, I've basically been taught this is how it goes. You're going to have to endure these walls no matter what, these extra weights no matter what. And if you can keep going, you may be successful, but your success will have an asterisk on it. But that's what we have to deal with as professionals, and specifically marketing professionals who are actual African American as well.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think there's some who, and this is one of our other questions we'll talk about later, but I think some posted it just to kind of save face, if you will, and just to say, okay, hey, bye, we are cool, we're woke. We'll be a part of the conversation, but I do think I like what you said there about the positive outweighs the negative of it, and yeah, some people did it who probably maybe shouldn't and gotten away. I was worried about a lot of people just flooding social with conversation, and the real stuff wasn't getting out there.
Right.
And I think that was a big thing. So I do think there's some benefit from it, and I like your idea of millennials especially. They're going to buy, and I'm the guy like if they got good chicken wings, I'm eating there. I don't care what they support. You know what I mean? I don't go look at people's political background. I just go there because they're close by. I live in a very small town, so whatever's local, that's where I go. I don't really look at how they vote and stuff, but I know the generation behind me or two behind me now because I'm old. They're thinking differently. They're looking at social media. They want to see how people are, and I think that's super important for brands that can and do have the ability to post those sort of things to post them. I'm going to hop over in the comments real quick, see what everybody's saying in the comments, because there's a lot coming through. Lisa Counter-Williams, who is our product marketing manager, she left a comment. Thanks I appreciate you, Lisa. Lisa and I have a lot of great conversations about this sort of stuff. Kristen says, this is such a wonderful conversation. Naomi, that's a hard conversation to have, which I think she was talking about when I was talking earlier. Sarah left a really long one. I don't think we can put it in here.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, I appreciate you adding that one. Nathalie said this is a powerful conversation. Naomi's got an interesting one here. She had 2 clients cancel their contracts and projects that week for getting political. That's interesting. I wonder I wonder if they canceled because they got political or you didn't get political. That would be interesting. One that kind of and that's Troy's comment here. Nathalie's comment: some generations will not purchase from you because of what you post about. So that's definitely true. And now the bad thing is on stuff like this, there's not a lot of data for us to probably look at. Like you posted, I guess we could go back and look at. This could be an interesting little test. Like go look at those brands who did post the Blackout Tuesday and compare their reach or their engagement.
It went high. It was very high for sure. It was almost like, imagine you're on Twitter, because we all know the shelf life on Twitter is like between 30 seconds to 15 minutes max, depending on the day it's trending, right? And you're thinking about Instagram and you're thinking of Facebook. People who posted the Black Square, and I know this because I actually did a study and I looked at it and talked to a lot of organizations during when it happened, pre and post for sure. And the engagement just through the roof. It was almost like, if you just didn't want to, if marketers, you'll get this. If you just want to boost some vanity metrics for the day that maybe measure out to make your month look really good or your quarter really good, Blackout Tuesday, when people were posting their squares, tagging and bringing their quotes of inspiration, things like that, blew up. People were just liking like crazy, commenting like crazy. It blew up. Now, I would hope that through all of that, people went through and actually read what was being said, took it to heart, had real conversations, and just not, oh, I'm going to like every person poke a black square because maybe they're not a racist or maybe whatever that might be with those those conversations. But it did elevate and bring a lot of people to light. And honestly, those who didn't and who thought no one will ever notice because there's so much, my feed is so black square heavy, no one's going to notice. And if they go to your profile and they're like, profile check, I don't see a black square. I don't know if I want to work with this person no more or this organization. That's also an issue with that too, possibly.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one. So let's switch over to what was supposed to be our first one, I think, and I went backwards. I put them in there, and I guess I put them in a reverse order there. But we had a lot of people who, in the last it was June, I believe, June or July, boycott Facebook ads, especially, and because of the way Facebook has handled different things. I mean, did boycotting Facebook, did it actually impact Facebook at all, or did it help? Did it hurt? What's the thoughts, and what's some data there that you might have found?
I was looking at New York Times about it, and the reality is it didn't. Now, it did maybe slight the numbers for a few days, but you have to understand how I don't think we sometimes understand how many people are on Facebook, including business page and everything. It's like, I don't think we understand the vastness of Facebook and how it has ingrained in us directly from a business, profitable, personal, whatever. This month, yes, a lot of people who chose to boycott, they did. But it was almost the reverse effect because they need the revenue from that. And a lot of SMBs recognize really quickly, I can't maintain this. I want to stand for social justice. Maybe I should not have proclaimed I'm going to do this boycott because I financially can't afford to maintain that as my choice of way to protest. And if I can take 20 seconds to just premise, a lot of brands are looking to try to support the Black Lives Matter movement, support people like me in the professional world, their audience, their customers. Do what's in your means. Don't feel forced to commit to something that you financially can't. I, for the sake of Black Lives Matter, would not want a good colleague and good business organization to lose people's paying jobs because they committed too great to that cause. That may sound like a conflict, but it's not. Do what you can within what you mean and elevate others that maybe can do more. You don't want to commit too much on the social front thinking, if I do all this up front, that people are going to pay dividends and higher profit margins in that choice. That may happen, but in more cases, unless you're not like a Nike or things like that, they probably won't. So I would just premise that if you're trying to do a boycott, do things again, do what makes sense for you and commit to that. And maybe sometimes you can do more without proclaiming everything on social either. Just food for thought there.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like, you said. I think that's so good because sometimes like everybody wants to like, hey, look at me. Here's what I'm doing. Just go do it and just be a human. Yeah. And like you don't have to shout it. I hate when people. This is like a personal. I'm taking a Facebook break. Just still take your Facebook break. We don't have to know. I mean that's kind of a similar thing. And I posted a link to the New York Times article in there, and I was listening to, I think it was Social Media Examiner's podcast with Jeff C. And Grace Duffy. Did I get that right? I hope I get that right. If I didn't, I apologize. But they were talking about this study that, because Facebook released their revenue for the last month, and they actually had about a 12% increase in their revenue, even though a lot of these big, massive brands were boycotting ads. But what happened is those small businesses went, hey, there's a lot more space for me, and so I can advertise a little bit there. So I wonder if it did it hurt Facebook at all. I don't think we'll ever know. It doesn't look like. We
also had an influx in more activity too. If at the very least, just more activity, getting ad revenue from videos because people are consuming more on Facebook during that time too. Yeah,
I mean, so that's my big thought here is, I mean, for a business, should they hop on a boycott train? Is that smart or? I mean, there's no data to support it, sounds like, right?
Sure. So I'll be a little transparent. I had an organization I've been working with. They point blank asked me, should we do this boycott? And whatever I had determined to say would go. Again, I'm Black, if you didn't know. So that's there. What? And also a marketer. I know, right? I know. It's just a good tan, And in all sincerity, I was saying you should not. You should continue. I'd say I'll give you this. If your audience is you'll know really quickly if they're seeing a lot of your ads or whatever for what you're trying to get them to buy or partake in, and you're getting a heavy negative influx, then stop. But if you don't, you have to outweigh it. There's other ways to show your support. You can't go so far in to try to appeal people on the digital front, and you don't have the financial backing to do that. And that's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
And so they was kind of shocked because it seemed like the natural response for me was like, yeah, boycott, yeah. But as a marketer, again, that's where the conflict I think a lot of professionals are dealing with, where if we're in a profession, it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to, balance both sides of the coin. And so they did it, no negative influx. They actually did get leads from it, might have turned into something. It was perfectly fine. And they shared all the ways to show their solidarity and support and moving forward. So that was just one case, obviously. There's others who maybe, if they're a different brand, a different industry, whatever, oh my goodness, this is the wrong move. We're getting hit. It's really just yeah, the data can only tell you so much, and it's also a human conviction thing too.
Yeah.
I'm also, the reason why I said continue on, I'm looking at all the the staff that they have. Hey, if we don't, we're going to lose money, and we're already
Right.
tight in COVID-19. If we keep this up, we short our salary there for a month, but that could have been someone's job in a month too.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
it is a really weird catch-22.
That is very true. If you're just hopping on and watching the show, we're talking with Troy Sandage from Find Troy about the marketing power of minorities. And we've talked about 2 points here. The third one we want to hop over to, you kind of mentioned it a little bit just then, is, the COVID-19 impact on Black-owned businesses,
Right.
even after the George Floyd, tragedy. What kind of influence, how has COVID-19 impacted Black-owned businesses?
Again, it's been this kind of good, positive, and then you got this little gray area of like tokenism, where it's like, okay, we got these businesses. I need a Black specific business. I can't find one, or maybe they're not really that evolved yet because they just started out. But there's been a surge, which is good. And I'm sure P as well as business owners and entrepreneurs, we want to be recognized, want to be seen. I want this publicity. I want people to buy my products, my services, whatever. But if it's in a vast volume that I can't either maintain, or B, it's kind of in the gray area of intentions, I don't know if I want it, or I don't know if I can handle it, or I don't know if I can maintain it. The data point is that there's only about 4% of business owners are Black. Not 4% of the country, 300 plus million folk. Sure, still a lot, but that's only 4%. So I want to let that sink in. Now, during COVID, 40% of specifically Black businesses, so think of the 4% and the 40% of the 4%, had to shut down forever because of COVID. And the numbers suggest that they may rise even more. So if you're telling me that potentially half of only 4% of business owners who are also African Americans within this country could lose everything because of COVID, because of the lack of opportunities, because of a lot of other things, it's like, wow. Now, we've seen a surge of people trying to support and want to buy into Black business, and that's great. That's phenomenal. But I'm also thinking about, is this just a trend? Black Lives Matter is not a trend. For a percentage of people who look like me and sound like me, professional or not, this is what we live with. This is not a trend. This is an actuality of facts. So when the media stop blasting it, when the Black squares fade up and you don't see no more on your timeline anymore, when you don't maybe see me on guests talking about this theme of stuff because it's kind of out of dated or out of trend now for it, it's still my reality and a lot of other people's realities every single day. Now, tying that back into the business, they're still trying. Now, the emotional toll from that alone will cause many of businesses to shut down, just to give up. Or on COVID, they got to think of their family members. They got to support them. All these other variables, and then add to that is really hard. So to wrap it up, are we seeing it in fucking people businesses? Yes. Does the data suggest that this is going to be sustainable long term? No. So they're peaking up high. The numbers are good. Maybe there's so much that they can't maintain, and then it dips down again. And now what we do? We need longer term solutions and people supporting Black businesses all year round, not just because of these moments.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like it's the cool trendy thing. And so let's go support, let's do this, but then everybody forgets about it later on. It's like we move on. That's my biggest problem. Like, and this was, one of our next questions we'll talk about is if, people hop on these trends and just go trend. And this is not a trend. This is not something that we just can, okay, well, 2020 is over. We don't have to talk about this anymore. It's something that, like you said, you live with this your entire life. And I think people forget about where people are putting money into things. We're throwing stuff at it, but is that sustainable? I was watching I'm a documentary guy. My wife sometimes at night is like, why are we watching another documentary? But I watch random Netflix documentaries all the time. And I'm in the middle of one right now, a series that's the business of drugs, which has been so interesting. And they were talking about the cannabis industry last night, the one I watched in California, and only like 1% of all the legal cannabis businesses in California are Black owned. And that's doesn't match up with the rest of businesses across the United States. And it was just something that just came up in the middle of that show. Like, wow, I wouldn't even thought about that for one, because the cannabis business, that's not legalized in Texas. I don't do it either. So I never thought about, who owns what, but only 1%, that doesn't match up with society. Even if we're at a 13% level of African Americans in the United States, why is it only 1%? Because they make it really, really hard. You have to have $500,000 cash in your bank just to open one of those businesses. And they, she was talking about how there's just systemized, suppression of Black-owned cannabis owners in California, and that was real, especially in California. You don't think that, and I was like, "Whoa, this is really intriguing." So it lines up exactly.
Well, a correlation with that of just the systematic side of how many people who are African American descent in prisons for what? Cannabis and weed, which is now legalized, and they were probably not even in the same ounce, but the rules, law, whatever. It's ironic now that for years that was the thing in prison, but now that it's legal, who's the face of it?
Right. There was actually they mentioned that they talked about a family where a guy, he was a dealer of cannabis, and he got arrested multiple times for it. Is in prison for life for selling cannabis. African American, and he can't get out. They're not letting him out whatsoever. And he sold less in his time that he sold than most of the little stores that are legal sell in a year. And so it's like, dude, this doesn't make any sense. But again, it's just that systemized suppression of just keeping people in and using them.
And it's a scary reality. It's not that, we're on this show right now and you're jumping around like, whoa, what is going on? This is deep for us marketers, orange hair, black guy talking like, whoa, let's go back to tips and tricks and hacks. Like, I don't want to see this.
Right.
But unfortunately, whether you are me, identify with me, support me, or you have audience, customers, people, followers who are like me, this is a reality truth that brands and organizations need to really take part and understand, quite frankly.
I think so too. We could make that could be a name of a show. The Orange is the New Black or something. Oh wait, someone's already stole that. Someone's already stole that.
Darn it!
Dang it. But I think it's important. I'm watching our of course, the Facebook watch thing had us really high for a while. I think most of our spammers have gone out of the other live shows to spam now. But I do think it's an interesting conversation, and one that is important, and that's why we're talking about it here on the Social Media Lab. Because there is some data to back it up. I've been posting the links that you've been mentioning in it, and then one of them that you talked about as well was talking about the increase in sales from Marketplace, and that's the thing that, like Troy has said, like we're worried about what happens after this has kind of gotten passed. We get to Christmas time, we get to. We're going to continue to support it, or is it no longer trendy? And that's what I don't know how we figure that out. I don't know how businesses do that. Is it just being smarter about how we market? Is it creating different products? Like you said, is it making sure those people who, are going to be your ideal client, are buying from you based on what you post and how you post? I don't know. Right. But I do think there's something to be said there. And kind of moving over to the next question, this correlates kind of just what I said there is how are businesses targeting minorities, and should we target minorities, and how should that work for a brand? Let's say, you are, a local clothing store in Orlando, Florida. How are they targeting minorities, and how should they target minorities?
Well, it's definitely been very clear that imagery sells a lot. So you go in Chicago for a chance, right? And I'm just going to drop McDonald's for a second. So on one side of Chicago, you see billboards, specifically white or Caucasian-looking families looking happy in McDonald's, whatever. You go to another side of Chicago, all black families, targeting things like that to drive the narrative that, hey, this isn't just for a white family. If it can also be for a black family that, hey, you need an affordable meal, dollar menus are getting, go do it. Now, the sad thing is that's the draw. But let's say you have a big restaurant who's very was it either there's $4 or $5 symbols in the how much they may cost, and they're like a 3 and above, right? They may never show an imagery of anyone who maybe look like me in any of their Google My Business images or their Instagram, because they're saying, statistically speaking, they probably can't afford this meal, or they're probably going to be an eyesore to other customers and those who come into my business. All these other very points that we don't have time today to talk about, but it's there. And that comes back to a strategic marketing of, if it fits this and they'll buy, let's do it. If we don't think that they will, we won't even market to them. And not knowing that, hey, and I had a study, I think I shared this, that African Americans right now currently, the buying power surpassed $1 trillion since 2016. And it's expected to reach 1.5 trillion by 2021. That's according to the University of Georgia. So if you're telling me you're going to pass on 1.6 trillion folk of dollars from a specific group because you think out of years of whatever your data points are that they may not afford it, not wise. We're getting, hey, guess what? People like me and way more people who are way more successful than me are pioneers trying to break those ceilings, which is really hard to do, to make more financial footing holds for other people to come up to buy more things, because we want to buy more luxurious things because we've always felt like we've been oppressed from not able to obtain these things. So it's a psyche. So when you're looking at trying to target minorities, it's also the language. If you're talking in, I like a better word, a certain way in a certain area, and it doesn't connect to that area, you're probably not going to get it. And now if you go and you post an Instagram ad and you got $100 symbols, keep it 100. For those who get that reference, you understand. That's more approachable for people like me. Oh, okay, you speak my language. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to say? It's not saying that you're talking black or talking white. You're trying to talk and connect to them and knowing their culture, knowing where they're coming from. Just how, we deal with white and Latino X and LGBTQIA. If you understand the culture within your community, you're going to be a super successful and super powerful organization. And I don't like the word targeting because it makes it seem a very negative connotation. We should almost change it. How do businesses understand and cultivate those relationships with minorities? And in doing so, that showcases in their marketing back end, and then in their front end, and the visuals, and the copy, and the way that they bring them in. Then not even that. Once I get you to click, what's the experience on the website, or the landing page, or the video, or whatever? Does it still keep that ecosystem alive that fits me, that makes me want to buy, or commit, or say yes, or call now? That is what organizations really honestly need to do. And we almost need to get away from targeting, because the word targeting has a very negative connotation, seems very manipulative. If I put these copies together, that I'm going to get this influx in black people to buy this thing because it's an unfortunate, weird looking image that shouldn't even be shown or whatever, but we think it's going to resonate with black people.
Right. I think that's true. I mean, so maybe targeting is a bad. Well, but I mean, for me, I'm thinking like ad targeting.
Right.
Is there a way? And I don't even know. I'm trying to think in Facebook ads and stuff. There's not a way to target based off of race, is there? I don't think I've ever seen that.
They had in the past. They took it off, obviously, for a lot of reasons. Also, fun fact, if you're in the political or you're housing or specific type of industries, they set and lock things up so you can't. Now, there's also, if you don't have those restrictions, there's ways to still kind of tie around that. So if I know that there's a certain age group, if they like certain things, so if Moesha just hit back on Netflix, right? Everyone's talking about it, right? So there might be an option on Facebook ads. Yeah. Let's just say it is that, this person who I'm trying to target likes Moesha.
Right.
Okay. Or maybe they like Drake. Okay, cool. Right. There's all subtle ways to kind of tie into the stigma of this is who I'm trying to target. And if I connect all these other dots, I can still do that.
Yeah, I think that's what most people do. Because I know I've been looking lately. My wife and I, it was kind of funny. The day I kept going, why am I getting targeted by these certain ads? And there were ads I didn't want to see. And so Facebook does allow you. I was on my phone one night and I started looking at how I'm getting targeted. If anybody didn't know this, you can go and look and see why an ad targets you, and it'll show it based on your age or location, or then your interest. And then we opened up our interest, and I was like, holy cow. Like, it was like Facebook had tagged us with like 700 different interests. And half of it, I'm like, I'm not interested in kayaking. Why? But I must have at some point liked a post about kayaking, and it put me in there, or I liked a page related to it. And so you can go in and change your targeting for one. That's just kind of one thing you want to make sure you do.
Premise. I know some comment said it's illegal by race, and it is. But we're just trying to exonerate the fact that you can surmise by financial. You can surmise by pages they like. You can surmise by locations. All these different points by technically just data points of stigma and activity. We can still kind of target a specific race just naturally by doing these things. And it's done time and time again to get people to click on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, YouTube. It's there. And I don't want to premise saying it's a bad thing necessarily if done in the right way for the right reason. Right. You have to try to target. That's the thing behind whether you're political or whatever. The people who target with ads, well, hey, they're targeting me. Yeah, because we're doing our job. We're trying to get a reaction, a result to happen. So we're targeting over and over and over. Facebook's not following you. We're just putting clips on you to try to get that thing going. So it's a pros and cons, because if the narrative was different and it wasn't about minorities and we're targeting people who love a specific type of brag, then it's all positive, right?
Right.
But then if it's like this, I'm feeling a little Troy, I don't know if I can keep watching it. The views is going down because this is getting deep. I want to, but that's also an issue. That's why we are conflicted as professionals. That I can talk marketing all day, but now you add a shell of blackness to it, or shell of minorities, or LGBTQIA, or Latinx or some other variable point that's really hits home. And it shouldn't be like that, but
Right.
unfortunately it is.
Yeah, so there's obviously ways I can, if I'm a marketer, I can get around the fact that I can't target, Asians in Texas. I can get around if I know my buyer persona, who they are, I can figure out what else they like that's similar to me. Like when I run ads, for the lab, I target people who have interest in our competitors of Agora Pulse and people who are interested in Social Media Examiner, Mari Smith, Kim Garst. I know they're the people that typically might buy our product or at least read my blog, and so I target. So it's the same thing here. If you know your buyer, there's ways for you to target it. And and on the side note here, I put in some comments of your some articles you had posted, and then I guess when I did that, I broke Restream, and I am no longer seeing the live comments come through our Restream platform, so I cannot pull anyone's comment.
No, I'm on my phone, just kind of trying to keep up.
Yeah, it's not in there now. I'm like, oh, no one's commenting. I went, oh, wait a minute. I look over here on my other monitor. I'm like, oh, Rob says I love documentaries too, and oh, there is other stuff over here. Sarah Monroe says it's deep, but we must talk about race in order to make systematic change. Agree 100%. Naomi said that's one of the downfalls of an algorithm manipulated feed. Yeah. So I'm seeing your comments if you're commenting, but at some reason Restream is not pulling them in. As soon as I posted your first one of the articles, I broke the system.
That data point for Restream's evaluation.
Yeah, broke the system there. So let's talk about our last thing we want to talk about. We've kind of touched on this a little bit, so we may not have to hop into this pretty deep, but and this is the rub. This is always the rub I have when it comes to anything like this. Is should businesses that don't talk about social issues talk about things like Black Lives Matter?
Sure. Whew.
Sure, that's your answer? No.
And what a scientist, a marketer, many professionals would say it depends, right?
Right.
And they don't mean that with good or bad. It's just, it depends. I think we're at a point now where businesses and identities of what you stand for as value props. We're talking about we need a value proposition. We need to have our mission statement. We need to have our purpose and our why on our website. That's great. But when these moments happen, what are you going to do? When you have employees, when you have a community, when you have people who buy from you who are in these situations, what do you do as a brand and as an organization? And depending on what the variables are, it'd be good or bad. I've been telling a lot of brands, do what you can. If you can't do anything else directly, do it in secret. That's not hiding. That's just, I'm aiding when I can, and I'm supporting when times are better. Elevate. I've been telling people, elevate. If you don't have the words, because maybe I don't have a Black leader on my staff or anything like that, go. There are many, many, many organizations who are owned by Black people, are part of executive staff, professionals, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, you name it, that you can elevate, that you can share and educate and bring things out to pasture in a way. And that's a way to kind of talk about the issues indirectly. You can serve as the medium. Agora Pulse, honestly, this month, I don't even know. Agora Pulse has been just blowing me, and this has been just an amazing journey, and I'm extremely grateful. They're not paying me to say that, but I'm willing to do something if you want me to. I digress. To really elevate this conversation. And they have been serving as this channel, this sounding board to take me and other people like me to communicate through and elevate out. And so they're serving as the middleman, and that's perfectly okay. That ties into the community, that ties into their audience, but they have also been actively standing it out too. But I'm saying for other organizations who, from the audience standpoint and from the physical financial standpoint, if I talk about it, I could literally lose money. I could literally lose my business. And that's a sad reality, but it's a truth. It's a truth, a finite truth. And doing that, you have to modify and adjust. So if you can't directly, don't feel bad. Don't put so much pressure on you. We will know you support us. We will know, okay? For many people who have not, done everything, they've been sending me DMs in secret, trying to help me out, figure out some things, elevate me, prevent me on opportunities, encourage me to keep doing things like this. Like, Troy, I can't imagine how it feels turning a switch on and having to talk about these moments, but then through outside of the view of myself and a marketer's lens to articulate this back to businesses And I'm doing it for my business. I'm doing it for you all. I'm doing it for this community, Agorapulse community, and those who are watching. And that's the value. And in a lot of business, you can do the same thing. If you can't directly communicate, elevate others, bring people into the conversation, connect the live stream, and have them talk. And you can just ask questions. That's an embedded way to get people, inadvertently way to get people to talk about things so you yourself can educate, be reinformed, readjust, and then go out and execute, go out and employ. This also allows you more time to talk with your internal staff as well. So should businesses do it? Yes. But it also premises with it depends what you're able to do. That if it doesn't impact your business and your organization to a financial level, sure, go ahead. Do test runs. But if you can't, it can't hurt to elevate. And if people are going to, troll you, whatever, they're probably not good for you anyway. Let them go do something else.
I 100% agree. And the comments now have come back at the very end here. A couple of them anyway. Yeah, I think that's true. And my thing has always been like, if you're going to talk about one social justice issue, you almost have to do, for me anyway, like you better talk about the other ones because you're going to offend somebody. So you've got to be careful of that as a business. You've got to know that you're putting this flag in the ground and you're going to start talking about all of them, or at least, the things that are just human in nature that you probably need to talk about, more. But I do think what you said is great. Like do stuff private. Like our company's had different people on the show. We're not out there, blasting out. We're not changing our logo or things like that, like a lot of brands do, but we're letting people have a voice and talk and educate and help us educate ourselves a little bit, like how we should be talking differently. Like Lisa Counter Williams, like I said, she's our product marketing manager, and she's married to a man of color, great guy. I've never got to meet him in person over the last 3.5 years, but I want to hang out with the dude someday. But I can't bring it up on here, but she says marketers should do more than having diverse photos. Although it's a good first step, we should work better to include African-American voiceovers, common African-American names and examples of Black-owned businesses and blog posts, et cetera. And I think that's so true. That you got to have diversity. I think it's awkward to me anyway. In August 5th, 2020, it's awkward to go to someone's website, and especially a big brand, and it's just all white people. That's tone deaf in today's society. I think you do got to do some. You can do those little things. It doesn't hurt to do those little things and make those little adjustments and do those things privately in your company to kind of help things out or make things easier to do.
I'd almost premise that businesses, you don't have to be an activist to support. We're not telling you to, like you said, change everything about you to a black fit to look good for us. Not every organization is a Nike level. Know where you are financially, physically. Just know your business. I mean, let's be very clear. Right. You're looking at the Nikes of the world, and even the social platforms who are switching gears, showing black. They have the financial backing, the celebrities, all these things in the works to do it, and they got legal and PR to elevate and fact check it and modify it. If you don't have all that at your disposal, stop trying to be really big on it. Right. Do what you can, and don't feel forced. Troy, I'm not gonna come to you all and be like, hey, Agorapulse, I don't see enough stock photos of black people when you're showing about your product launches you just did. What does that mean? Like, I'm saying that's getting a little too facetious too. Yeah. Sure, I get it. We want to see more color, but also it's going to take time. And also just think that, okay, if I see me personally, I see an executive room of Caucasian people, I don't immediately think, oh my goodness, they're not cool. They're not going to support me. They're not going to elevate me either. I do understand why we need more diverse representation within business, but it takes time.
Very true. Very true. Well, Troy, anything else you'd like to add about our conversation? We could go on for like an hour or two. And I think like I said, we may have just started a new live show together.
I am curious, and I look at the comments after and even just follow-up conversations. Like, this is obviously, I'm sure, a different tone than your show.
Yeah, I mean, we typically are talking about how to either like data points. We for the longest time the show was me and Owen video, and me in a sense Owen interviewing me about the experiments. And Owen's not on the show now, so the last like 2 months or so, I'm interviewing people asking about hey, how do you do YouTube marketing? How do you do this or do that? So yeah, it's a little different than that, but the same people who watch that show, those episodes, are watching this one and leaving great comments, like Naomi. And Kristen and some others. So I think it's gone pretty well, I think. So I'm excited to see that and glad the audience stuck around and listened to it. Before we go, one of my favorite new sessions is the hardest part of the show. for the guests is what I'm calling 5 questions. And this will become a podcast at some point down the road. I'm just waiting to do it and get to it. So I'm going to ask Troy 5 different questions from a deck from Poddex. Poddex needs to start paying me for talking about them. Poddex.com. It's the funniest. They got cool little interview cards, basically. So what I'm going to do, Troy, is I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You can pass if you don't want to answer one of these. It's too personal or awkward. Sure. Feel free to pass. And if I see one that's like way too awkward, which this whole hour has been kind of awkward, so I don't think that's a possibility. But some things are a little like, oh, it's too deep. So, all right. So question number 1, 5 questions with Fine Troy. What's the favorite thing you've bought this year?
Ooh. A green screen.
Green screen. Ah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen you use one. That would be kind of cool. All right. Green screens are kind of off. I'm here or there on green screens at time. I hate my backdrop, and I'm about to change.
You know
it.
what? I'm going to add to that. I bought a whole new camera system, like a whole new of gear too. So I'll add to that. Yeah.
All right. So question number 2, 5 questions with, I'm just going to say you're Fine Troy, where everybody can find you on social. If you could be guaranteed one thing in life besides money, what would it be? I told you something.
Man, that's fire. That's woo. I could be selfish, or I could be. I'm gonna say travel whenever I want it.
Okay,
for free.
All right. Question number 3, 5 questions with Fine Troy. If you can instantly become one, what would you want to be an expert in?
Oh, man. I don't know the name of it. I'm ignorant of that, but one who can just be an expert in all languages.
Oh, so
that would allow me to just expand my community to vastness, and just, I love interviewing people. I love talking to people. I would do it for like the rest of my life if I could. Right. And that would just kill that barrier, and for me to really understand the dialect of how it meant versus translate, you lose some of that value in that.
Yeah, that's one thing I've learned, like, in working for a French company, like there's somebody on our team who speak multiple languages, and I'm always just blown away. Like, how in the world do you speak 4 languages? I can barely speak English correctly. And that's the only language I know. And so, yeah, it blows me away. And people, see, Lisa just said what it was, polyglot. Polyglot, I guess is what it's called.
Oh, well, thank you for that. I never knew.
Yeah, now we know.
I learned so much here.
Yeah, we're learning lots of things here on Social Media Lab today. All right, so we're at question number 4, 5 question with Fine Troy. If you were to die and come back as a person or thing, what do you think it would be?
Woo, man! Do I have to match someone who previously or someone else? I don't know.
Whatever. Yeah, whatever you want. It could be a thing. You could be like a desk lamp if you wanted to be.
Eagle. I'm gonna say I'm pretty sure I'd come back a journalist. Come back. If in another life, I'm pretty sure I'd be a journalist. I love interviewing people and telling stories. I think that'd be my way to go.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I had a fun thing. I had an opportunity to work with CBS in that realm when I first got out of college. Just didn't fall through, but it's meant for me to be a marketer.
Yeah, like I've changed jobs a lot throughout my life. There's always a plan C, later on. All right, 5th question with Fine Troy with 5 questions. This would be a good one for you. Who'd play you in a movie?
Well, he looks like me. He kind of do multiple things. I mean, Troy from Community. Hello.
I don't know. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So I thought you were going to say like
I can't sing or dance like him though, but yeah.
Good deal. Well, Troy, I appreciate
for sure.
I appreciate you hopping on the show. Where is the best place to find you if people want to go find you and follow you and just soak up all your greatness?
I'll try to keep greatness on a short leash from Monday to Friday, but find Troy on Google search. I'm big on Twitter. I've been a little lax on it. I've been pushing a lot more LinkedIn lately, so follow me and connect with me on LinkedIn as well. All social platforms, really. Find Troy.
Fine, Troy. Well, I appreciate you hopping on here. I love Brad Freeman said it'd be great to be able to speak Texan. Yeah, it's a whole different language.
That is a whole different language.
It is different here. Like we say things that everybody, even people outside of Texas, go, "What? What did you?"
But I want to say with you all's enthusiasm too. I can't get it right.
Well, see, you get it wrong. You wouldn't say you all. You'd say y'all. So you got that part wrong right out of the gate. So, Well, again, Troy, I appreciate you being on this show, and I appreciate all of you who've come on to watch today's show. We'll be back live next week with Valerie Jennings is going to be our guest. So I'm excited to have Valerie on there, and I appreciate y'all letting us kind of change up things a little this week and have a little bit of a different conversation here on the Social Media Lab. So we will see you guys next week.